Hey, so today I'm going to show you how to create this environment I made in Blender, but I'm not some genius whatsoever, so the scene is going to be very simple and it's just going to be basic elements and it will mostly just look cool in the end. But I want to put a warning first, this isn't a tutorial as properly said. I'm more going to show you my workflow and how I was able to make this scene. I assume that you already know how to use Blender and move around in your scene properly. So, to start, I had a really no idea what I wanted to do. I mostly just knew that I wanted to make a scene with a sculpture. So, the first thing I did was get some online. You can find some free ones very easily on the internet, especially on this website. I'll put it in the description, it was very helpful. After putting it in, I was thinking, as usual, making it big, like a big ass mega structure. I really like having really big things that make you feel very small. I feel like they always feel much more interesting and imposing to look at. So of course I needed a scale reference. I always use this little guy I got from Riley B3D, I think. RileyB3D.com. I wanted to shout out because I really love it. I use it all the time. Knowing that, I had to add a floor and some kind of wall. Nothing definitive, but enough to get going and have an idea of what I want. These pillars right here are just very simple cues I extruded and added up my mirror modifier. I personally really like using the Outer Mirror add-on. It's put in Blender if I'm correct, it's very useful. These pillars, I made them for the Blender competition I participated in. It was the one of August and made this environment after a lot of trial and error. A quick tip I want to add also, when you start having a lot of scenes and making a lot of assets, try reusing them, it's very helpful. It nearly feels like you're doing some kind of drag and drop at this point. I really recommend you using the asset library to do so. But you have to be careful, you need to put in the append mode. Otherwise, you'll just have some problems to be able to modify them like you want, and that's a real pain. But I found that the place was a bit empty, so it felt too flat. So I sort of just going back to one of my first projects and get back some kind of a forest cylinders. They're just some cylinders I extruded and inserted some face around it. You inserted a face while pressing I, but to make this kind of forest of stuff, I used geometry nodes. Of course, I'm not an expert in that subject, so I just copied one I found on YouTube. You can pause the video and copy it on your scene if you want to. Basically, you're just a plane and you add points on its surface. Those points will then spawn in that cylinder I made before. The cylinders that I put it in their own collection. You can put whatever you want in this collection, it will then spawn it randomly on this plane who has this on any of the planes that have this geometry nodes. Then there are these modifiers that I just randomly turn the cylinders to prevent too much repetition. Now that I got this ready, I can just pull them all around. But on the moment I totally forgot about adding and just put it a water shader. I went back to the project where I sold all my statues because I realized I didn't UV unwrap them. I don't really bother to do good UV unwrapping. I mean, it's good when you're in a studio working as a team or some kind of stuff like that, but I really don't want to bother. It takes way too much time, plus the Smart UV unwrap will do a pretty good job. It really doesn't seem to look bad, so it doesn't matter. Here I just used a stone texture and added an ambient texture to get all of the wear off you would get from a stone statue like this. I adjusted a bit more the scene and added a bit more pathways. Those pathways, I've made them for my Portal 3 renders. Basically, it's just some cylinders that follow each other, not a big deal. But if you want me to explain in more detail how I model that kind of detail for my scenes, tell me. Basically now I'm just going to duplicate instances of the statue using Alt-D, not Shift-D. I'm telling you, it will save you a lot of performance. Especially because I have a potato computer, so I need to optimize it as much as I can. But here there's nothing complicated really. I just duplicated more and more statues, making it a bit more organic and 3D, to also prevent the main statue looking like I just spawned it right there. Just to do some simple stuff that seems logical, don't bother overcomplicated with what you're doing. I kinda like adding stuff all around it. It's one of my favorite parts of the entire process. Here, so now we're all good. This made me think that I could do a thing with the fact that he doesn't have a head, so I moved the pathway I had and intersect at that level. But I was also thinking of adding a kind of representation to his head. So I made a glow blob. I don't know what these called, but I really like them and they look good. Beveled and extruded some of the edges to have that middle ornament. I'm pretty happy with how it rendered out in the end, so I just added a random texture I had to give some touch of imperfection in the lighting. Here's just a basic texture that goes into the emission and base color node. But I wanted a red-orange look to it, so I added an RGB curve node in between the two. Did some weird extrusion, but it turned out well, so I'll just go with it hanging from the ceiling. I started putting the poles in the water. I don't know, but I was going for a kind of temple look, so having stuff in a very small box of water same next to the password seemed to go well with it. Then of course, if I want to guide the eye of the viewer correctly, I need to have the stuff pointing to the main piece. So I've made them orient towards the center of the frame of the camera. The walls respecting that wall too, I put them to the horizontal. It made it very weird wall, but I mean it looks nice, so it doesn't matter that much. A bit forward, I made the poles much bigger for the ceiling. I was thinking that it would be nice to see some kind of variation, plus it makes a kind of elevation from the top to bottom to the ceiling that becomes very big. So it's kind of fun. I did more and more of those. What's really nice is that it prevents to have something that has too much going on, but still has a certain clarity on what you see in the scene. Plus, my brain is small and smooth, so stuff that is simple is always better when you're starting. With that comes simple lighting too. Just one spotlight I placed in the holes that I left in the ceiling. I quantified the luminosity and add the volume to it. Simply put, it's the fog for your scene. I know it's not really the most accurate realistic stuff, but it would always help the lighting. Here I put the density at 0.01. It's kind of a high value. When you have fog, most of the time it will be around that value, but most often beneath it. Now I've got all the basic stuff, we're going to need details. Lots of details. Have some things that will break into tiny pieces of scene. So you've got big forms that break into tiny little forms. Not to have something too flat. So I got some tiles that I made the day before. It really just is a bench of basic tiles where I randomly deleted some, related others, and just added some loop cuts, adding some damage to a few. It really just is basic stuff. But now the problem is that I know that I've got a scene that is too dark. It arrives pretty often, I don't put the intensity of the light high enough each time. But here's the problem, is that we can't really see the path from where the camera is. So I'm trying to add some kind of rectilight, but in the end it really doesn't turn out well, so I've tried a lot of stuff here, having a single one separate them, or have an ambient light surrounding the entire scene, but nothing really fitted to what I wanted. I left it like that to change later. Now I think of adding some katanas to do the border of the path. I did a drawing recently of those, so that's why I thought I was smart enough to create one from memory. Has a lot of flaws, but I'll leave it like that and it will be fine. We won't really see it anyway. It will do the job fine, really. Here I just got some simple fabric texture from Polyhaven. Free website, you can go and use it. But the biggest problem is that when I tried making the entire metal part of the sword, I was thinking of making it glow. It was a very bad idea because I spent nearly an hour on it without having it good results. But that's how we learn. By trial and error, you try again and again and again, and you find out what works and what doesn't. I started doing some more render tests, but my computer really is slow as hell for that. So I went on Pinterest to find some references because I felt a bit lost into what I was missing on my scene. Then, as it always happens, I get distracted by a scene. I found it on it and lose again 10 to 20 minutes before realizing that I need to get back to it. I do some more tweaking here and there, changing the light color and get some really interesting, but get back to trying to make the kit nice glows. Lose again another 30 minutes on those. I finally just try adding a bit more Katana variation before realizing that I can just add a soft orange glow directly onto them. And voila! I got my scene that I'm really happy with. I went into the whole thing and get it through the Blender compositions that I made, before sending it to Affinity to fine-tune some details, getting the imperfections that a camera would normally give. Getting rid of a bit of the rendery look. So what do you think? I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. I think that the fact that I used a stone texture helped a lot to give some more depth to the statue. I'd love to have your feedback on this. Anyway, good day, good evening, good night.